who spent lots and lots of time in Europe. Probably not just doing outreach, but that's okay because he's going to come back here and talk to us about the outreach he has been doing. Stan, he had a difficult time writing this actually because he's done so much over there, so he wasn't sure what to cut out.
Anyway, welcome. All right, so we are going to talk about this outreach stuff. So now it's silly. Okay, so yeah, I just got done doing a 6-month sabbatical in Lund, Sweden, and I'll be mixed in with the talk there. And Dave was looking for international outreach people to talk, and so in the research and the backgrounds I was doing there, I had some exposures to various programs. International outreach efforts can be thought of in a couple of ways. It's the U.S. to Europe outreach, so we're outreaching to the international community. They're outreaching to us, and Europe to the U.S. So some of the outreach in Europe that I did get exposed to was outreach by universities, research lab outreach, industrial outreach, science center outreaches, and coordinating EU outreach, and with a conference that actually just when Dave was asking me to do the talk, I went, wow, there's a conference called Europhysics Fund. I guess it's about outreach and international outreach, so I should attend. So I did. So it was really, that's interesting too. So international outreach, U.S. to Europe. I always try to figure out, well, what's the differences? And at least the people in the EU that I've talked to is the one thing that we have as far as doing science shows or demo shows or the way we present things is we're kind of a little more let our hair down. We're not afraid to make fools out of ourselves. We're sort of like very open, where people are more rigid, it seems. But that's changing, I think, as everybody's getting more into the entertainment industry and people are watching more YouTubes. But it's one of the differences that we have. And as far as the EU to the US, from what I can see, science is just more prevalent in the EU. There are science festivals and people plan vacations around science festivals. It's really interesting. Popularity of science centers just seems higher. They've been building more outdoor science parks, and the science museums seem more plentiful. And so it's kind of an interesting just observation. And I think the science festivals in the European cities, the U.S. is starting to do this in various places, but we have a lot to learn on that there, and they have a lot of examples, and I really think it's one of the primary things. But the other biggest exchange is there's just awesome and clever ideas on physics education and demos shared between the countries, and I'll share some that I was experiencing by going to various places in the EU. University outreach examples, well, I've got four universities that'll be mixed into my talk here, and we'll get a little bit farther in that. But the first one will be Lund University. People have met Zetterberg and his son Yuan. They've been to AAPT meetings, and they have this thing called the Physics and Laser Show. Students visit the main lecture hall of the department. He's fixed up the whole lecture hall with incredible numbers of laser diodes in the ceilings, and they have smoke, and it fills the room. He put thunder sound, there's a storage thing underneath the classroom, and he put a big, subwoofers down there, so when the sound goes, it actually vibrates the seat. You can feel the sound coming through the floor as well as the sound system. It's an incredible show, and you can see they do about 120 shows a year. That's most on the Lund University campus. They like to bring students to the campus, so they're trying to integrate students into the campus already and say, this is your lecture room, and various things. So trying to reach students who say, like in Malmö, which has a lot of lower income students, and they think that they could never go to Lund University and besides ever study physics. And he goes, no, this is physics, this is lab equipment where we've done some fun stuff with it, and here's this room that you would take lectures in. He does about 120 shows a year. The staff per show is about 6 students plus the 2 presenters, him and Yuan. They also did a special invite to China. They actually took all this stuff to China and did shows in China. It was very interesting. Maybe you saw it, I don't know. But it was a big effort. And he was representing Sweden in China. They've reached 250,000 visitors have seen the show since it began, and that's the counted attendance that they have. The dramatic increase in students to scientific physics at Lund University, which was his goal, they increased the number of student majors that they have pulled into to Lund University by a factor of 4. They went from the number 3 university to study physics in Lund to number 1 as far and so he says it seems to be a very, very that's his data. They have undergraduate students that assist with the show, and then they do a special thing with Culture Night where they have 140 students that get involved. So with the outside experiments, they set up in tents and stuff all around the facility there, their physics building. And that Culture Night also, I did a show last September, so I got to see that, but I did 4 shows for Max Lab, which I'll talk a little bit about. So the Culture Night thing is a very interesting thing within Lund. There's a culture of Lund, and some of these various cities also have these culture nights where, and then during the culture nights, the people actually do a lot of science on those nights because it is part of the culture of the Lund University. So it's various outreaches that they do. The second place on the Lund University campus, this is the Vattenhallen Science Center. Vattenhallen, it used to be a water hall, Vattenhallen Water Hall, but they stopped doing water experiments in there, and so they turned it into a science facility, a science center. This is run by the engineering part of Lund University. It's interesting, there's 2 schools, sort of. There's the engineering physics, and then there's PEOS, which is the natural sciences physics. And let's just say the communication between these two has some difficulties at times, okay? So the Vattenhallen Science Center is run by the engineering school. It opened in 2009. It's got 1,000 meters squared. They have hands-on experiments. They have students building kits. They do shows. They're focusing on school classes come in during the week. So I was working there quite a bit over these past 6 months, and you could watch all these different students come from different ages, everywhere from, it's a K-12 type of visiting, really, or 1 through 12. I don't know if kindergartens ever make it there, but probably do. They have other events. They're open on weekends on the public, on Saturdays and school holidays. They have 10 paid staff. Some of those paid staff are half-time faculty from LTH. Part of their faculty duties is to be part of the Science Center. They have 30 student workers. They had 33,000 visitors up to 2011 now. 50% roughly school, about 50-50 between the school and the public in those visitor things. They have various goals which you would normally have at a science center or as an outreach program. Maybe hitting a little more of tourism too, but we're trying to get an even gender distribution in the engineering school and more students from non-academic homes, which is also PEOS Zetterberry's one of his focuses. So they want to increase the interest for science and engineering. Their budget is $1 million. So they got 7 million kroner per year going to this thing, and about 50% is coming from the engineering school, and about 50% is also coming from 25% from various grants, and also 25% from fees that they can charge on the weekends, and also stuff they sell in their stores and other ways to make money. And also they charge the schools a fee when they come, but it's pretty cheap. It's like probably like giving $100 or $150 to bring your kids to the science museum. So, oh, and that's yeah, where did I have it? Oh, this is the inside of the halls down here. I'll probably show another picture of that. And that's one of my shows I set up, which I'll talk about later. But anyway, that's sort of what the hall looks like. They have a little planetarium you can see in the background that can hold 35 people, and they just put a digital projector in. They have plans for the new exhibition, which is why I was working with them. The European Spallation Source and MAX4. MAX4 is the higher energy synchrotron radiation lab that they're building outside of town. And the ESS is the European Spallation Source that is supposed to be built there also. The ESS is not fully funded yet, but they're pushing hard to finish the funding on it. And so they're actually building some displays. And part of my mission while I was there was to help them brainstorm on what types of displays they could possibly build that would show all these principles that are being applied at these research laboratories, and also bringing more information to the public. So I did that in a number of ways. Everything from building hands-on workshop for teachers, kits for kids to build, and also, of course, building up a couple of demo shows. They do public shows. This is their sort of arena that they have. They have a nice stage area down front with very nice technology with a big camera that can zoom in, and a nice sound system, and lights that can be dimmed and stuff. And then they have these bleachers that people can sit on. So it's a very nice little layout. They do a chemistry show, thunderstorm show, and my journey to quantum land show. And they have hands-on displays and experiments. And they also have kids. They have these various kits that they've designed. They have some PC boards. Kids can put in components and then solder them and go out with flashing diodes. And I developed one of these laser modulation kits that they could have kids build now, which was actually with an LED instead of a laser diode. But anyway, now to Europhysics Fun. Europhysics Fun. I heard about this thing from Anne-Marie Prendrel, who's been at AAPT meetings. She's a pretty big mover and shaker in the country of Sweden. I found out about it, I applied, and they said, sure, come on up. So this thing started in 2009, as far as I can understand. They had a sponsor coming up with about 6,000 euros per year, and they were funded to 2012. So now they're figuring out how they can get funded beyond. They're searching for sponsors all the time. Next conference will be in Germany in 2013. They really liked having me from the US there. They thought this was just really cool. And they said, you should make sure that somebody tries to come. And I said, yeah, we can do that. Keep in touch. But it's in April, which could be problematic for many of us to go there in April, but what the heck. Denmark in 2014 and Czech Republic in 2015. Anyway, no cost to participants. That's the whole thing that they do now. The 6,000 euro that they had, they got a youth hostel, and they put everybody in the hostel, and so anybody who went there, you didn't have to pay for lodging. You had one big conference dinner, and they had some coffee. And then they gave the hostel, which had the kitchen, and they supplied the kitchen with a whole bunch of food so people could cook your own food at the hostel. So they did try to feed as best they could. Young participants, really, in general. I mean, most of the people there, I almost want to call them kids. 20s to 30s, I was definitely the old wise science elder. I showed up at this thing and was like, oh, hi everybody, I'm Stan. And I'll show you a picture later on if we have time about this guy who was my roommate, poor kid. Anyway, I warned him, I said, I asked him if he had earplugs because I probably snore and all these bad things. But he was really nice. But he was out partying with all these young kids till 3 in the morning, and I was passed out. It didn't really matter. And he said I didn't bother him at all because by the time he came home, he was crashed. But anyway, really great, energetic crowd. They'd have poster session, presentations, a group science show for the public at the conference conclusion. And I really think we should do this in the U.S. So Pyra, let's get on the roll here, shall we? Or CSEP. We have to find some way of trying to get this funded. We should work on it. So some examples of the Outreach programs follow. This was a list of the people. This is the first. There was about 50 participants, and you can see these were the hosts up in Bern, Norway. And so people came from Denmark, from France, from the Czech Republic, from Sweden, from Germany,
Switzerland,
the UK, Switzerland even, yes. And anyway, there you go. Okay, Estonia. I got a nice little story about the Estonia coming up. But Poland, the Netherlands, the whole bit. So you had people from all around the EU doing these things. The first one I want to talk about, because I have two ways of talking about it. I visited Charles University in Prague, but also they had 2 attendees at this meeting. They do 1 or 2 demonstration lecture shows per week for pre-college students, from basically high school students in the Czech Republic. The students come to the campus for these shows, so the idea is we're going to show them that the high school's equipment don't have. I've heard pros and cons about this. One person said, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And there's another person, Jan, who's a high school teacher, and he says this is terrible. They should just work harder to get stuff into the high schools and not rely on this. And so it's an interesting two-way street. Okay, but they do topics range from mechanics to optics. And let me tell you about the Czech Republic. These people are clever, clever, clever people with demonstrations. I'm telling you. It's like a whole country of Brian Joneses. Really, I think it's really incredible. They are really great, and they have very interesting. This was the show here in. Did you know if you put a rubber glove on top of this thing and the water flows out, the glove. Oh, never mind. It's just great. Anyway, they do all kinds of really fun stuff. And so Europhysics Fun. These 2 women, Dana Markova and Jitka Ivkova, I tried my best. Experiments for high school physics. They were the representatives at the Europhysics Fun. And this is Leos at Prague University. They're basically the advisor, one of the primary advisors of all the people who get their education degrees from there. And he is a clever, clever man also. And he actually had a TPT article recently. And anyway, he's just a very, very clever guy. He was showing me his low-cost optic rail bench there. It's basically a PVC pipe that he did all this stuff with. It was just great stuff. So, just to tell you, they had a demo in a box contest. They gave you they mailed you this metal box that was the size of just a tiny bit bigger than an Altoids box, just a tiny bit taller, and this metal box. And it was demo in a box contest, and you were supposed to try to figure out how many demos you could put in this box, and how many things you could represent by the stuff you put in it. Okay, so they came up And they poured this stuff on the table. You can look at this stuff on the table, and here's a list of demos. 60 demos they put in that box. And everybody's going, yeah, right, and everybody's laughing. They're going, no, okay. And they went down, and when they got to number 17, people were going like, you're serious, you have 60? And they said, yes. So they finally had to cut them off and said, we're going to believe that you have 60 because we have all these other presenters that got to go. They got first prize for demo in the box.
Yeah.
But I cheated. In my box, I put the LED modulator, I built it in the box, and I had my iPod in the box. I opened up my box and I said, in this box, I have 82 demos. 80 of them are the audio demonstrations that are on this iPod. And they said, well, anyway. And I started playing them, the audio CD, the audio demonstration CD. I started playing them, a couple of them, this is the sound of, it was really fun. Anyway, but then we showed them how the LED thing worked. But anyway, I got sort of an honorable mention for trying to get the first prize. Anyway, it was a great meeting and all. So another one was Physiscope. This is Geneva University, obviously near CERN, and they do these. People come to them, but they do very small groups, 25 students, and they have actual apparatus set up to do a demonstration type of thing. But they also have students do hands-on laboratory with hands-on stuff. These are various topics that they're covering, and so that started in. I thought I had the date there. It's like 2008. 2008, it's there? Thank goodness. I just can't see it because I'm trying to glance too fast here. But they started in 2008, and they were successful, so then follows, of course, the chemists have to follow. And so the chemistry did this thing called Chimiscope, and they have their things they're doing, and there it is in French, and if you run it through Google Translate, go on. You can get it from Google Translate. There we go. And so this is the various things that they're doing with chemistry on the same idea, okay? The same idea, people coming to the laboratory. Then there's also the Czech Republic. I meant to have this before. I got the slide a little out of order. Czech Republic also had a science center in the northern part of the Czech Republic. And like coziness is a main motto of the first Czech Science Center in IQ Park. And so they were also a clever couple of guys who just had an interesting thing. They also built a two-dimensional, that was actually the guys from Bonn or from, they have a two-dimensional flame Kunststube in 2 dimensions, and they showed that, and it was really kind of fun. And these guys had built their own too. They were really proud that they followed in Germany's footsteps, and now they had theirs, and it was kind of really fun. The Estonia, so there's other people to talk about here. Danfoss Universe, and they're a corporate-sponsored outdoor science park. And if I have time, I'm going to go. I got web pages set up for each one. Some of these places we'll just go visit really quick. But the Danfoss Universe, they're the corporate sponsors. Danfoss is a industrial company, and they built a whole outside park. And they train students. They're very, very strict, and they hire students in. They go through a very intensive week of training. They learn how to do these shows. They learn how to take people through this outdoor park. And it runs in the summer. And this is, as I said, people take their vacations. They go to this science theme park. The Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, they were represented. Rhino is the science outreach from Leiden University. And the physics show from Germany. My German's bad. And then AHA, which I thought was one of the best science museum names. AHA, that's the name of the science museum from Taurus, Estonia. These two young women here, and they always say, the Estonia girls, where are they? And there was just sort of, and they'd say, we're here, and then blah blah blah. And it was just really funny because these girls, they just loved fire and explosions. And this AHA demo show, from what I can tell, is really a chemistry thing and not a physics thing, because they just light things on fire, blow things up. We got these below, and they showed their room, which is all this fireproofing thing going on, and boom, boom. And 5 minutes already? Yeah. I'm having too much fun. Then there's the International Outreach of Research Labs. There's the ESRF, the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility. And they did something with ISWA, and I think I'm going to we're going to try this very quickly. I want to go over to, I don't want that. Go away. Go away. Okay. This one here. The ISWA project was part of, it's not even what I want either. Well, I could just replay this movie. It kind of shows the ideas. It's actually art. So they mixed art and science together, and didn't have the sound plugged in. Doesn't matter. You can read it. Maybe I should go to full screen for a minute. But the whole idea was to get art students involved with learning about some science and going to like ESRF, and they learned from the scientists about the science. Then they did an art project that they believe displays what science they learned. And it was a very interesting. It's a very interesting project. It's going to run for another year. It's a project that also has competitions for high school students and also college students to come up with these various projects, or media artists that are.
Before I came here, I was looking on
anyway.
the internet what's forums and
It's
stuff
a pretty cool thing.
That was the first inspiration. But then it grew.
Well, let me just zip to the end here, and you can see what he ended up cutting out this three-dimensional styrofoam. He stacked up a whole bunch of styrofoam, cut out this three-dimensional object that's supposed to look a little bit like the flu virus as it shows up from the synchrotron radiation facility, lit up with different lights so you see different aspects of it, which was pretty fun. So, yeah, I just blew that. Went to the wrong thing. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, I think, because I only have a few minutes left, there's a whole bunch of, well, I got to go back to the slideshow. Where is it? Hang on. Dave, you just read it. Okay, there we go. All right. The Diamond Light Source, I also visited that. I had a big thing about synchrotron radiation facilities because that's what I was working on with the MAX 4 facility. The MAX 4 laboratory is being built outside of town, as I said, and they didn't have much going on for outreach activities, so I was sort of recruited in, they kickstarted into some other directions, because later on they're going to build a Science City, and Science City will be part of Science Outreach facility built within that. European Science Festivals, the Gothenburg Science Festival, which is one of the first ones, and it's huge. Been going on since 1997, very, very, very popular. And I got the privilege to go there and do workshops for teachers there, and actually see the endless streets of set up with science exhibits. In every conference, nook and cranny of Gothenburg is doing science for that week. It's really quite an astounding situation. Zananstival, I have to do my last striptease artist here. There's the Science Set Festival in Ljubljana, and it's obviously one of the best science festivals in the world because it brings the best people there. Thank you very much. They have 4 outdoor stages and 1 indoor stage. It runs Thursday through Sundays, and it's the best science festival. But just figure out why it's the best science festival. This is the president of Slovenia and his wife. Now, I found out the day before I was leaving back home, this was after this, I found out that her grandfather and my grandfather are brothers.
No.
Wow.
So I haven't contacted Barb yet, but anyway, so here's the president of Slovenia inside the Science Museum, and you know, having a bubble over his head. I mean, it's a great country, right? And this is Michal Kos, who's the director of Hiša Experimentov, which is the science museum there. And there's people like this guy down here, if you can recognize him. He's sort of dark right there now, but that's Brian Jones, who also was invited to this wonderful thing. The other science festivals and outreach festivals, so Science Made Simple, of course. I went to visit Wendy, who was here in Edmonton, and she actually, we got famous again this year. Our picture is again in this announcer, even though we're not doing the demo show.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that my picture was with China, a show from people from China, and I think when I was doing a demo show, there was somebody else's picture in that one too. So I think we're sort of running along with some type of theme with these old pictures for new demo shows. But anyway, Wendy's doing fine, and Science Made Simple is another outreach thing. And if nobody has questions, I would show a travel log with photos.
Public outreach, but I'm kind of skeptical on the long-term impact of any of it. So I'm wondering, especially like the folks in with the laser light show, Do they do any sort of assessment?
Well, I said that Peo can show that his number of physics majors he's got at Lund University increased by a factor of 4.
Oh, the number of physics majors?
Yes.
So the laser light show gets them in and they actually retain them with normal classes?
Yeah. As far as I can tell. At least he has, I mean, he's teaching the 200 level classes. Now, what they do from the first natural sciences that they go on, I don't know where they go on from there. They get their degree in physics. A lot of them go into medical physics. A lot of them go into medical also. That's pretty big because there's a huge hospital and research facility at Lund University. It's a campus of 44,000 students and all. So I think a lot of students do branch out into something else, but he is able to pull in for students when they take the 200, basically I think the equivalent of our 200 level physics classes, our intro, math, calculus, and algebra-based classes. They're now #1 in the country of Sweden as far as pulling students in. That's his claims.
Another question? Yes, Patty?
Stan, will you be able to put your show up somewhere online where we would be able to access it and
What we plan to
put
do,
the
Patty,
links?
is we're going to have a Facebook and also the YouTube account, and we're actually going to place this on YouTube. And what I'd like to do is link whatever we can, PowerPoint-wise or of the talks, to this same account.
That wasn't planned.
It's okay. It's okay. But that we'll probably we'll work on that and make sure
Yeah,
that we can
exactly.
link all this up, especially a slideshow that he wasn't able to show.
Right, it's like
Right.
all of the links that he had.
That's
So
right,
Not
that's
just
right.
the videos, but the links to the different.
Yeah.
I actually have a
Okay.
question. Well, one of the things that you said they were developing this outside the town, this new facility to do electronic research. One of the things that's happening in the U.S. is any NSF grant has to have an outreach component to it. Is that also becoming part of the European science establishment?
It's hard. I don't know about in Sweden.
Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
exactly. I think that's more up to the laboratory itself to do.
Okay, so it's not like...
I don't think so. But in the UK, the UK does have for the diamond light source for them to do. They have to show that they're actually doing stuff within the public. And I didn't have a chance to mention it, but one way the diamond light source is doing that is by building up materials so the user of the synchrotron radiation facility can go out and do the outreach for them.
Good,
Like
okay.
they'll supply the materials and the training
But
and the
at
workshops.
least, and now they're developing demos to kind of show what's going on there.
Demos or
anyway.
at least handout, yeah,
Yeah,
some type of
right.
things, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So,
Yes.
In terms of permanent facilities, I know that a lot of cities, Portland or Boston, for instance, have large museums that have some level of outreach to education programs, but they're not involved in the formal education community necessarily in the way that universities or high schools are. Do you have any, and it looks like they've managed to bridge this gap maybe a little bit more successfully in some of the places you were. Do you have any suggestions for bridging that gap, or just should we, make our own facility and?
well, I think, I would probably at this point in time say you could try to work with your local science museum and see if you can build up a program if that's what you want to do. Get the funding to do it. You can probably have, I'm starting to think of trying to get in Eugene, working more on trying to get my SPS students over to work in the local science museum. And there's some that do that already, but we're trying to figure out if we should be doing more of that and working towards that. I think time and money is both a big hassle with that. I think that's where the Vattenhallen, it's not cheap. They got $1 million they're investing in this, having the science center on the campus. But it's an interesting, another interesting philosophical way of doing it. So, I'm sorry about that. That was actually, you might think that was really crude, but it was in Gothenburg, and I saw this thing, I said, oh my God. Took a picture of it, then I finally had it translated. It's actually an advertisement for plumbing.
Of course.
Plumbing and toilets,
Right,
yeah.
right.
It's an advertisement for plumbing.
Another
plumbing
question?
and toilets.
Any other questions? Well, I suppose that brings our session to a close. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. Let's thank our speakers for their time.